Hey you, yes you! Are you still sleeping on the Azure Striker Gunvolt games? No, actually I've been playing a lot of the Striker pack lately. What's your problem? Play them already! With Mega Man being freaking dead for a while there, we needed some great jumping and shooting 2D action to quench our appetites, and the people at NC Create served us up a really nice platter. These guys are an indie company now, but they did work for, well, Capcom, and made some great Mega Man games, a few of those being the Zero and ZX games, so I'd say they have a pretty darn good track record. I guess they one day just decided that if Capcom isn't gonna make a Mega Man game, they'll make their own, so they did. And if you couldn't tell, I absolutely loved the Azure Striker Gunvolt games. The first entry, while suffering from first game syndrome in just a few areas, is still a 9 out of 10 game for me. And then, there's the sequel. Yeah, it's pretty freaking great. Gunvolt 2 is the unsung hero of 2D platformers, being that it's as close to perfect as a game in the genre has gotten for me, but nobody talks about it. If there's one thing you should take away from this video, it's that you should play this game. Once you beat the first game, of course, because you won't get the story or whatever. After about, say, my 4th playthrough of the second game, I thought to myself, holy crap, Gunvolt 2's this good? I can't even begin to imagine how good Gunvolt 3 could be. And then, I did start to imagine it, and I came to this conclusion. If NC Creates were to really push themselves like they've done many times before, I truly believe that Gunvolt 3 can be the best Mega Man game without question. Because let's be real, the Gunvolt games are Mega Man games. You run and gun with a very similar feel and near identical controls. There's a boss rush near the end of the game in the same vein. In Gunvolt 2, Copen steals the boss's powers. The main story has a heavy focus on the growing conflicts and issues between humans and non-humans living together. The Gunvolt games are Mega Man games. If anything, Mega Man X games. Of course, I don't mean that literally. It's not like they're part of the same canon or series. If they were, the words Mega and Man would be in the title. I mean they're one and the same when it comes to what type of game they are, not literally a one-to-one same thing. Look, I know my audience is smart and is understanding of what I'm trying to say, but I thought I'd clarify that just in case there's that one guy who doesn't know what I'm talking about and all that, so yeah, you get the point. Now that we've cleared the title up a bit, let's get right down to the point already. It seems rather strange that I make such a bold claim, but it isn't too wild for me. I say this because, well, I can already say that Gunvolt 2 is the best Mega Man game. For real though, Gunvolt 2 is what I enjoy the most counting the 2 GV games amongst the Mega Man titles, but I know that we can take many more elements from the top tier Mega Man games with the 2 words Mega and Man in the title. What makes great Mega Man games the quote-unquote best are additions that do nothing but expand upon the series formula to make for even higher quality games. So let's expand on the Gunvolt formula, which is arguably an already expanded Mega Man formula. For one, let's add one more playable character. The original had 1, the second had 2, so it makes sense for the third to have 3 characters. Oh my gosh. As for who our newcomer will be, well, I think it makes the most sense for that to be Joel. Only character-wise, they're having the changes she went through by the end of Gunvolt 2. I will talk about those because spoilers, but it won't make any difference for how I want her to play. How will she play, you ask? Or the real question, how are we going to differentiate her from Gunvolt and Copen? The two of them play differently, but still have the general formula of tagging people, then hitting them with those over-the-top attacks. Tag, you're it! We're gonna have to get a little creative here, but hear me out. Joel can, of course, fully harness the power of the Muse further than both Gunvolt and Copen thought possible, so let's play off of that. I want her playstyle to be focused on fast-paced melee attacks to tag her enemies before striking her enemies with a stream of projectiles like Gunvolt and Copen. For her melee combat, I'm thinking like Zero's Z-Saber, fast and visually communicative for where her strikes will hit. Gunvolt got new types of guns, and Copen got new special weapons akin to Mega Man X's gameplay of stealing a boss's weapon. For Joel, I want her growth to be like Zero from X4, by constantly learning new ways to hit her foes with a sword, be the upward strikes, downward thrusts, dashing attacks, so on and so forth. And as for her style of background music, I'm thinking something like the Mega Man Zero Mythos soundtrack, a smooth synth techno hybrid in a way with some guitar thrown in there for the melody. Those terms are probably wrong because I'm not a music guy at all, but whatever you call that, I like it. I want it. Of course, we need some smaller tweaks in character balancing, but I think having her be our third character with a heavy focus on melee combat would make for a strong, highly enjoyable third playable character. I feel like she's been built up to be playable, and this would be, in my opinion, the most logical next step as GV and Copen have a heavy focus on projectiles. So why not take a step in the opposite direction? See, I have my strokes of brilliance. Another easy tweak that can be enhanced is the game's length. 03 is a perfect example of this, as that game had a whopping 16 stages. I think I got that right. It's absolutely absolutely wild, but one of the reasons why that game is so good and expands on the formula. I would love it if Gunvolt did something similar while incorporating the 3 playable characters to make for the longest Gunvolt experience, while not wearing the player out having to go through 3 campaigns. I'd say that lengthwise, the Gunvolt games have been pretty good. The original had 13 stages, though one is a hallway leading to a boss fight, so that's more accurately, say, 12 and a half. The sequel seemingly has 16 stages, but one stage is a boss fight that can literally be done in 10 seconds, 2 of those are hallways leading to boss fights, and 4 of those are stages shared between the 2 characters, only 2 of said 4 having paths that split between the 2 characters. So with all that in mind, counting boss fight stages as half levels and not even counting that 10-second boss stage, that's about 14, and not counting the 4 stages repeated as 2 stages each, we're down to 10. Of course, Gunvolt 2 had 8 completely new stages added after beating the game that are all great, but for the main campaign, I think we can do better in terms of the sheer amount. I don't want to say specifically how many, as I'm not a game designer and I don't know how much time it takes to make a level. I'm only a loser on the internet who can't shut up about the games he loves, you know? However, I will say that I expect this entry to be longer than the previous 2 entries because not only would it help for a common criticism against Gunvolt 2, its length, but it will also make for a more complete feeling game. At the very least, make sure that none of the characters share any stages between each other. If you were to give everyone their own intro stage, 4 stages without any repeats, a mid stage, and 4 final stages that are, again, different, you'd already have more stages than the previous 2 entries with a whopping 30 levels overall. That's not even mentioning a final stage would get for the true ending, being that having one final level for the proper ending is a serious tradition at this point. At the same time, you wouldn't have to worry about losing the player's interest since the game would be long but keep things interesting between the 3 different playable characters and levels. Each campaign would take a few hours at most, and I think that's perfectly fine for this type of game. A few things to keep in mind though are that I don't want any of these stages to be hallway to boss fight stages, and it's okay to share level themes just as long as the level designs themselves are completely different. Both Gunvolt and Joel can go through a jungle level so long as the actual stages themselves aren't repeats of one another. Of course, don't be shy to add more levels in the campaign, but this is me saying that even the bare minimum is enough to make for a longer and satisfying game if the indie creates effort I expect is given. Also, please add extra stages once we beat the game like the DLC levels, except keep them as unlockables like they were in the Striker Pack. They were cool. I liked them. Bring them back, please. As for the story, well, I have a lot of faith in the writers for giving us a satisfying conclusion to the Gunvolt storyline. Yes, you heard that right, a conclusion. I believe they're building up to the 3rd game to be Gunvolt's final entry, and I'd be perfectly content with a solid trilogy of games. Being that the story is one giant narrative, it'd be a shame to let it go on for too long that it lose the impact, you know? I don't want to give a one-to-one explanation of how I'd write the story, as that'd just make this video way too long and really there's no point in being that extra, but I just want to give a few inputs. I love the ongoing theme of humans and adepts having a struggle to coexist, not unlike the humans and Reploid struggle seen in the Mega Man series. Without spoiling how that plot ended, a sacrifice was made, which in turn was so heroic and inspiring that it gave the people hope, with a very satisfying ending that didn't 100% tell you whether or not the people in Reploids finally made peace with one another. I think you know where I'm going with this. With the way Gunvolt 2 ended, it's clear that despite everything that may or may not happen to GV, his #1 concern is that he just wants Joel to live in a world where she can be happy in. And with Copen having the inner conflict of thinking all adepts are evil only for that mindset to be challenged thanks to some twists, again, at the end of Gunvolt 2, these are all things that could be built up to all 3 character arcs coming to an end surrounding the themes of humans versus adepts and the drive to let Joel live a happy life. So to end Gunvolt 3 off, GV should face the true final boss protecting both humans and adepts alike, sacrificing himself in the process. With this inspiring fight being seen the world over, Copen could finally gain respect for GV, and he could come to terms with the idea of adepts and humans being able to put their differences aside and live in harmony someday. Not only that, but with Copen's protection and the big bad out of the way, Joel would finally be able to live a happy life with Copen acting as a brother to her, and GV would be able to rest in peace knowing that the world is finally moving forward from this years-long conflict that Joel is truly happy now. I really think the story is building up to a conclusion in that vein, and even if we weren't to go exactly as I'm predicting, which I don't expect it to, mind you, the writing in these past Gunvolt games have been great. I just have a lot of faith that the level of quality will reach past where I expect it to be, and that's exciting. Honestly, this video has seemed like a dream Gunvolt game sort of deal, but that's not the point. I'm just really excited about what could be with this game, and that's a great thing. Both Gunvolt games are extremely replayable, have solid stories, great level design, tight controls, and many extras that they're some of the best 2D platforms I've ever played. One debatably being my favorite 2D platformer. And just with these 2 games alone, Gunvolt 2 expanded on the Gunvolt formula so much, so I of course expect the 3rd game to do the same. It might seem dumb to have my expectations and optimism be so high, but honestly, that's just how I am. And with a development team like Inti Creates who really care about the quality of their games, I think my faith's in good hands. Even still, I am being hypothetical here by saying it can be one of the best Mega Man games, not that it will. But if I'm being perfectly honest, I think it's pretty safe to say that it will be. If anything, it'll be one heck heck of a game that only adds to the quality titles this franchise has provided. Azure Striker Gunvolt is such a great series, and above all else, I'm just excited to see how it all comes together in this third installment.